you need to do checkups on your properties. You need to make sure if you own multiple properties, if they're free and clear, even if they're not, you have to take steps to protect yourself.
This is Las Vegas Real Estate Now with local real estate expert Harvey Blankfeld.
Rick, you before the program, you were telling me you had a story about somebody who reached out to you with what they thought might be some kind of just a spam letter or something like that. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, so during the process of an escrow, we do certain things to help mitigate any type of fraudulent activity. And right now, I can tell you in the marketplace, we're seeing a lot of potential seller fraud or fake sellers trying to sell properties that are either vacant land or absentee owners.
Right.
So we've always preached about following and monitoring your property, but we'll get into that in a little bit. But so this story goes as we had an open escrow, we had a buyer, we had a seller. Seller was very much in communication with our escrow officer. The escrow officer was a little bit leery just because of the things that were said on the phone and during the times that he only could call. It didn't really add up either earlier in the morning or more towards the end of the day. Never during the day. Well, it's because it was the wrong seller. It wasn't. It was a bad guy. And we had strung them along far enough to where we had to make a decision on whether we believe this is a seller or not. So we set up the notary. It was a remote notary that needed to be done at the library in North Dakota because the guy reads on Thursdays. So he wanted us to send the notary to the library. So we asked them, again, we do certain things to mitigate. So we asked for some information up front that we could verify.
Right.
And it crickets. So he knew at that time that he couldn't perform because he wanted us to mail a check. And we said, no, we have to do a wire over a certain amount, which is very, very different from how we really operate, right? We normally would send check if somebody asked. But in this situation, we said no, asked for wiring instructions. And he wouldn't give them to us, and he went cricket. So in the meantime, we did a little research to find out who the actual seller was.
Okay.
We used some skip tracing and some other software that we have the ability to look up who actually has phone numbers at a certain address. And
nice.
So we did that, and our escrow officer called a couple of the numbers, and he got a hold of the actual seller. And one of the steps that we do in an escrow when we open it is we will mail out a verification letter to the seller at their known mailing address.
You get it from the tax records.
We get it from the tax records online. There's a bunch of different sources, but mainly the tax records, right? And it's not the end all be all. That's just step one. We had mailed this letter out. We mailed it to the right address. The gentleman received it, and he thought it was a bad letter. He thought we were the bad guys, and he didn't reply. So all he had to do was make a phone call and say, look, this is my property. I'm not selling it. We would have put the transaction on hold. We waited, 30 days until we reached out to him. And he told us, he goes, yeah, I got that letter. I thought it was fraud. I just put it in my drawer just in case. So then we explained the story to him and told him, like, no, there's a guy out there trying to sell your land.
Yeah.
And we caught it, but that's not going to mean he's not going to try and move it to another escrow company.
Yeah.
And right now, I've been on the show quite a bit, and I've talked about you need to do checkups on your properties. You need to make sure if you own multiple properties, if they're free and clear, even if they're not, you have to take steps to protect yourself.
Yep.
The Clark County Recorder has a great tool. I've been saying it for a long time. It works. It is after the fact, but you will know the day it happens.
Yeah.
Instead of waiting weeks, months until you show up at your second home and there's somebody living in there, right? So the Clark County Recorder's Office has a feed where you can register your name as well as your parcel number. And if anything is recorded against your name or your parcel number, you will get a notification that something was recorded. Now, it is after the fact, like I said, but it is pretty instant. So there's steps that we take to kind of, like I said, to mitigate the fraud, but there's also things homeowners need to do in the meantime, even if you're not buying and selling.
Right.
At the minimum, list your property, or not, excuse me, but list your name and your parcel number on the recording site so that you get the notifications.
Yep.
The second thing is that Clark County has a great website system. I give them a lot of credit for everything that they have. You have the assessor's page, the recorder's page, and the treasurer. Make sure that your information is up to date on there. The second thing that these bad guys are doing is they're sending in an address change to change it to their address, and nobody gets notified. So make sure that you're checking your tax records, that your address and your mailing address is what you want. The other thing too is, when you register on the recorder site, you also look at their site and search your parcel to see if anything in the past has been recorded that you're not aware of.
Right.
It's a great site. It's pretty easy to read.
Yeah.
And if you have any questions, we're always here to help as well with it. We can pull that information either through a property profile or a small lien summary. And then we can get copies of the recorded documents as well if you need to get those. So
Yeah.
there's a lot that can happen, but you have to take the first step as a homeowner to basically protect yourself, because understand too, your title insurance that you bought when you closed doesn't cover that. That's
Right.
after the closing date.
You have to be
So
diligent.
you have to be diligent, and you have to make sure that you are at least being, on top of it and check it. I used to say every year, it's every quarter now. With the amount of AI
Wow.
and fraud, I mean, you can do it monthly. It takes 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You're sitting in you're on the computer, you can do it really quick.